Okay. And as I put it on the chat, and I'm going to read it next. You know, we assume that applicable media releases, not just the one that Zoom has now embedded into every meeting, but the one that we use for Toastmasters will apply. You have heard it already. I'm working on this for a school. So if anybody has an issue with being on the panel and it, you know, being public, please let us know. That's what I just said. And now the topic. I started with hybridization when I signed up for this a few weeks back. But I think between the jet lag and the time zones, I thought better to ask the club tonight. And with that, I even looked at the project. I know some of you are experts. Some of you asked me some really good questions last time I talked about this. So I wanted to expound on that. And I would broadly state the topic as examine and discuss the value of collaboratively creating content online. The value of creating collaboratively, the value of collaboratively creating content online. What is collaborative content creation and curation? This is what we're doing right now. I've been pursuing this idea. So far, it's mostly an idea for a while. Some of you have helped me shape it. Some of you have gone through a couple of rounds and surveys and given me frank, candid input on it. And as I'm about to present it to the world as part of completion of the graduate program, I'm going to knock on wood here by the spring, it keeps evolving. You know, ideas do that. Ideas grow, ideas expand, ideas sometimes shed. So tonight, even though I started with hybridization because it's obvious that what some of us were dreaming about a few years back about hybridizing our meetings, at least for Toastmasters, it's now an everyday reality. It's how we conduct meetings. Fortunately, most of the club is there, but you don't mind a couple of members coming along. You bring the gear, you set it up, and I am certain that for many of you, it is a reality at work as well. I can tell you, I'm slowly becoming a Microsoft Teams expert. It's a pretty powerful next generation tool, and what we get a lot done. We get a lot done. The downside, we don't need to travel. So anyway, so collaboratively creating content online, and I'm going to ask this as a question. And again, I see you're all here, so we're okay with sharing this afterwards. This notion of creating, collaboratively creating content goes back to a very simple statement, if you will. I personally have been gathering a large percentage of my projects and putting them online for fun. I think watching a 12, 14, 15-year-old, however long it was then, icebreaker, not a real icebreaker, was an icebreaker to a new club. Now we have icebreakers with every path, interestingly enough. But the fact that we can use these tapes, if you will, to one, evaluate ourselves. Nobody else sees it. But then the second part of this thought is, do you, and I'm asking, I'm going to somehow draft everyone. It's up to you whether or not you want to take up these questions. But to you, is there also value added to taking all these extra steps, talking about releases, putting up a little thumbnail slide so that we can then share this with the world, use it for PR? I think I emailed it to most of you. Did anybody get the previous one? Did anybody get a chance to look at it on YouTube? Okay. Now here comes another one. And by the way, I've been working through Olivia to contact your VPPR to be able to assist and introduce, again, these novel ideas. today, for example, do you see value on organizing and preparing a presentation that, for example, like this could be later posted? Do you see value on organizing? I am sorry, I was literally jet lagged from a week and a half, 6 time zones away. And then I was delayed in Detroit, but, or Detroit, as the pilot called it, the French pilot called it Detroit, unforgettable. I was delayed and I couldn't make it to the Tall Tales contest, but for example, something like that, something fun, something interesting that we all enjoy. Is there value on preserving it and sharing it, or is it something that's better kept just for the audience, those who attended at that time? And I'm going to throw that question out there, and I'm pretty sure I know at least one of you has opinions on this kind of thing. So anybody?
You said
go.
You said you were posting it online. How many views did you get for a numerical value based on?
Lee, as to how many views I got, again, I'm starting very slow. Part of the evolution of the presentation of the concept is I'm thinking I'm going to take it actually a step back and just say, hey, this is me. This is my journal of Pathways projects as I work on my Pathways DTM. Most of everything that I've loaded so far, Lee, has been unlisted. And for those of you who know YouTube, it's available, but it's not being promoted, which is why today I said, I know some people out there know about these things. How would they look at it in terms of the club? So the metrics are small for what I have published so far. Again, mostly because it's unlisted. And I have not really made a big push to promoting it, Lee, because remember those under construction signs that we used to see on the old websites? It's something that still happens. So my expectation is that once I catalog and I publish it, as I hope I will get better numbers. But right now, it's merely anecdotal. That's why I'm asking, show of hands. And no, it has not been publicly put out there with tags and everything that one has access to. Excellent question. Then I'm gonna ask a question. Am I the only one that posts? I'm gonna call it personal content because it's mostly speeches what I post. Has anybody expert? Oh, there you go, Michael. Go ahead. Your question.
Like, what is your target audience? Who would you be targeting?
My target audience, Michael. Again, that's been part of the back and forth with this project. Please understand, I literally dedicated my master's to Toastmasters as a prototype. In one of the textbooks, I found it really made me smile when I read about something called an extreme audience. These are people who know. These are people who are into a topic. So the current audience is obviously Toastmasters. I thought, I just came back to the club. Of course, I'm going at 100 miles an hour. Let me step back and get their input. So today, if you ask me today, my audience is you as a member of our club to ask, hey, do you want to go through these motions and have somebody hit record so that you can take that tape back to evaluate yourself, and to others, not only evaluate themselves, create a library of their projects, which may come in handy later on as we document our levels, but does anybody else wants to use it for something else? So the audience today is internal. It's an extreme audience of Toastmasters members who either are curious or have already played with these tools and have posted and shared content created at a meeting. That's why I call it collaborative. You know, it's not just me talking into some, no, there is a group of us here, you know, we're orchestrating this, so it's collaborative. It's created. The content is created in a group. Does that help? Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking about, like, usually when you're creating something like this, there's someone in your mind, like an avatar that you're thinking about. You're like, oh, I'm creating for this person and this type of person. And that's really what my question was. You answered it with the Toastmasters and the Toastmasters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfectly fine.
Yeah. Actually, to elaborate again, and by the way, unlike the question and answer session, which we could have one at the end, I'm welcoming anybody if they want to elaborate. But back to the audience, Michael, my thinking is shaped by the fact that most every club continues to struggle with membership. Of course, we're coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and joining clubs again. And, you know, we feel more comfortable meeting in together and all that, which is a plus. We may see actually a wave of people coming back because we enjoy this camaraderie, but we learn how to use the technology. And my question again to everyone is there value on saving some of this and then use that to promote the club, to promote how the club works and the people in the club? I think I saw a raised hand. Go ahead.
What has really struck me about the whole pandemic, and I think this is one good thing that came out of the pandemic when it comes to people realizing that you don't necessarily have to be someplace physically to get a job done. And I think that's really opened up the boundaries and expanded the possibilities for Toastmasters as well. It's taken, because when you're talking about then and now, when we first started the venture into the hybrid world, Toastmasters was very precise about what percentage of the members can participate in person. You have to have at least over half of the people participating in person for it to be considered a Toastmasters club. And now they've reimagined what it's like, what it can be like. And at Tribal Toastmasters, we have a member in our club who lives in the Bronx. And he loves coming to our meeting in Northern Kentucky every other Tuesday night and participating in our meeting. And he loves it. It's just, he goes to a club down in Lexington as well. He just likes the ability to go places that meet his time frame, because that sometimes is a big problem with people when they actually have free time to participate. And with being able to leave the virtual world intact, then it really helps everybody be able to participate how they can best participate. There are some people who really do appreciate being in person. I'm one of those people. I really get more out of the meetings in person, I think. I enjoy seeing people's faces and being able to, you can read people's body language more in person, I think, than you can just looking at their chest up. But it's not, it doesn't mean that it's not an acceptable way of communicating. And it's not the way, it's obviously the way of the future that everybody needs to learn how to participate virtually because your jobs will require it. More and more that companies are global in nature, and you may have to be in a meeting with somebody that lives halfway around the world. And it saves companies so much money when all they have to do is have a Zoom meeting. They don't have to pay to get everybody other places. And I really think, I was glad that our club was one of the first clubs in the district that was taking on the challenge of being a hybrid club initially, because it put us on the forefront. It helped us be able to navigate so many aspects of the Toastmasters program. We have people in our club who were a huge resource for the district when it came to for the contest season and everything like that. John wasn't, his influence and his help in the district was so instrumental to help that contest season be successful. And I really appreciate everything that he did. So I think then and now, with the hybridization and virtualization, it's, at first we saw it as something daunting, but now I think it's something I feel that we've embraced. I like that we have that capability to have people in person if they choose to be in person, but we also have Francisco, who likes our group, but he lives in Madison, Indiana. It's kind of hard to drive here all the time from Madison, Indiana, especially in the winter and these dark nights. And it's just so much easier to be able to participate like this.
Roads are so much safer. I won't say
when he's in Madison, Indiana. I didn't say that, Francisco, but that's my, I don't know if there was any question in that, but I'm just affirming what you're saying.
It's a panel, Sheila, and I'm glad to hear it from you. And in a way, that's why, I shifted gears. I said, hey, let's ask the club. I was there for some of that. Again, I always go back to my little branded mementos here. I know that was an exciting time. I think was the convention. When did we have the convention there in Erlanger? In Covington at the Holiday Inn. Was it 2018? Was it? Yeah, I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
Because 2019 was in Lexington, and that's the last time.
Virtual.
So yeah, the once trailblazing nature of all this is now wholeheartedly embraced by not even corporation, most every organization has realized, wait a minute, we can get a lot done through these tools. And to me, when I was helping with my local area, I heard such amazing speeches, and when I looked up, the recording button was not on. And I'm like, man, if that club wanted to, tell its community, and like you said, tell a corporate partner that may be thinking about, why do we need to have a Toastmasters club? The speeches like that are memorable, but, it was for the benefit of those who were attending. And that's again, my challenge. And I'm just by now thinking, you know what, just post what you have, make it more of this is what I'm doing and doing it, what I've been analyzing, just instead of saying people, hey, do this. No, I am doing it. I am posting the end of this first path. And you were talking about people joining you from, other places because of the time being convenient. Well, I think I mentioned it, and I'm going to mention it again. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so part of our challenge, I guess, is to always try to be as attractive as we can And it sounds like we're in a process still, because it's a time-consuming process and it's a very personal process, to figure out what is it that is attractive. You know, if you listen to, for instance, Garrison Keillor, he can pick a feather up off the ground and he can make that a compelling, interesting moment, just the way he will describe that. And it's attractive. So here with Toastmasters, we have our own way, or we have our own opportunity, our laboratory here to figure out how to become attractive. The video conferencing is great because it allows people, for instance, we didn't mention this, but people that not only choose to stay home, they have to stay home for different reasons. And by offering what we do, a hybrid meeting, those folks can feel secure that we're going to be there for them, even if everybody gets healthy and so on. Not everybody. Still, not everybody's got the night vision to get out there and drive. Not everybody's got the 2 legs that work real great. So we are overcoming those barriers too. And I think if you've got a certain kind of disability like that, one of the questions in your mind is this going to last, or is this going to dry up?
You're asking me?
No, I'm asking rhetorically. So
okay,
we want to figure out how to be attractive, and we can feel good about remaining accessible for people that might have access issues. They have to have internet, of course, but other than that.
Yeah, if I may, John, you asked, is this gonna dry up? As you heard it from Sheila, she works in a larger organization. I work for a larger organization. Last year, it was a necessity to use the video conferencing tool for a very, traditional meeting that we used to have here, localized at headquarters. And they decided to do it early in the day, and that way we could invite a lot more people. Guess what? Leadership thought, hey, this is the way to go. Not so much because, organizing the traditional meeting involved cost, because of the feedback. It was amazing. I mean, we were watching, we were there, we were at work, everybody knows that whole, from screen to screen, but you're listening, and then, time for questions. They poured, and leadership was really, really happy with the reaction of the group that attended and all the information that they got from a lot more people, which did not tend to happen. The traditional meeting was very one way. There was interactivity last year. So guess what? This year, we're going to do it again. So that's I would say, a real life example of how video conferencing opens up things that we hadn't thought about. And then they just happen.
I can add too, it's been really nice that our group, different people have decided, okay, I'm going to put my toe in the setup of these meetings and bring things. It's not been left to one person, and that's good, because some things that maybe one of us wouldn't have thought of, somebody else tried and it's working. Mm-hmm. So it's a collaboration at that level too. The funny thing about video conferencing is you wind up having some interactions going on at different levels. There's the meeting becomes multi-level. As we know from some of our district events, we always have a back channel. So there are communications going on between certain parties in the video conference that not everybody else hears. There are side conversations just to kind of keep, let most people focus on what they need to focus on. And you went on mute.
And John, to me, that's the stuff that I'm really trying to research and learn more, because most of us have seen the apps, become established, gain features, become more secure. But the use of the apps, as you point out, these back channels, like I said, I have this example of interactivity and people feeling comfortable enough in that setting to ask, people way above something candidly and openly. And as you say it, the more of a Zoom master one becomes, and I made a bit of a joke. I wrote it to everyone, but all that goes on in the background, even the preparing for the meeting. Sheila mentioned you're taking care of and supporting the online contest. That's got to be an awesome experience when you are this much into this technology. And to me, going back to Michael's questions about an audience, I'm doing all this because I feel that a lot of it's portable. What I'm learning, what I'm seeing, what I'm researching for school, sure, initially aim at the Toastmasters audience, but you're all professionals. You're all people, like you said, you have your by day. We're doing this by night, but I'm pretty sure some of these things either you're already using or you may feel inspired to bring it to your by day.
Francisco, I noticed that you had some more slides besides your opening slide. I was wondering if there's something there that you wanted to share with us.
Thank you, George. Not really. Excellent question, though, because I do have these slides. It's part of what I'm trying to explain and incorporate in my instructional intervention. I'm going to take the first slide that you guys saw. I'm using that. I save it as a graphic file, and then if you know YouTube, when you're loading, you're able to either choose a thumbnail from the video once it's processed, or you can put your own thumbnail. I personally feel that I would rather have, because as they accumulate, and I've seen some channels, you see the same person's face at different days, but you have to look at the video to know what the video is about. I'm adopting a little bit more of a perhaps old-fashioned, I grew up with PowerPoint. I chose it as one of my technologies. So the slides that I had was that, and today I finally was able to, put up a slide with mentioning the media releases, and another slide with the turn your camera on and off. And I only have one slide at the end for saying thanks once the red comes up. That being said, George, I'm going to tie your question to my next pack. I'm supposed to be working on presentation mastery. I don't know how many have done it. I haven't, so I'm going to raise my hand as somebody who hasn't done it. But how many of you have played with a feature in Zoom whereby the slides become your background? So you're essentially in the slides. Has anybody done any of that?
I've seen it done.
I've seen it done.
Yeah, that's one of those things I want to master and play with. I don't want to do it right now. This is going pretty well. But George, back to your question. In our by day, for example, me, another reason why I picked this intervention, this topic about collaboratively creating content online in the world of software, the thirst for knowledge, if you will, for information, for instructions is insatiable. I mean, you cannot put them out fast enough because, of course, the upgrade comes. And but the point is that I first saw this at a very large cloud player. So that kind of stuck in my head. Actually, I was at their call center. Jason, right?
That's me. Yeah.
Okay. So I was at their call center, and when they had to introduce a new release, this is a software product, all cloud, CRM, Salesforce, they would have the lead of the change come in and explain it. And I like the fact that they did something very Toastmastery. They had to be somewhere with a relatable, I'm going to call it a relatable background. In this case, yeah, the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. But they had to present themselves first. Stand, in front of the camera, medium shot, before jumping on the slides and before explaining the application. And then it turned into a narration and, mouse coming here, mouse coming there. But that little bit of making it personable, I always thought, that's very Toastmaster. Yeah, don't just show up behind the curtain like the wizard, but face the public, introduce yourself, make it relatable, make it personable, and then concentrate on the visual aids. And I think most of us who have completed that project on visual aids and presentations can attest to that. Does that make any sense, George?
Yes, that does.
Okay. Jason, any questions?
Have you explored any of the negatives or the drawbacks of hybridization?
Definitely, in our case, and I'm going to speak for the clubs that I've attended, it's been a drain on membership, specifically for groups like us. I know this is, it has upset a lot of people not to be able to meet. I mean, we're at the end of the tunnel here. We're seeing things differently today. All the airlines were celebrating that they were letting people back into the U.S. Funny, I didn't know that. I just went to Austria, but they let me back in because I was a citizen. But the drawback to me, Jason, is usually that persistent, I would say, choice to avoid technology if altogether possible. Sheila mentioned it before. You guys are all there in the room. That's awesome. If this was if we could travel back in time 4 or 5 years ago, we would just meet there, gather, interact. There was very little technology then. I mean, you would show up with a laptop because, again, you had a project that required a presentation, and you had to make sure that it worked. Call the library person, hey, yeah, HDMI, blah, blah, blah. But that was it. The fact that we now carry backpacks with microphones and speakers and this and that, to some that may be a drawback. And it's understandable because it's something else that we need to learn. It's another learning curve. It's something else to master. That's my opinion.
What about in the private sector where it's forced? So August of 2020, let's just say any banking call center. Have you gotten into any research on that kind of front?
Not specifically, but I know that I recently came across an article by Microsoft. I don't know how many of you have heard the term. They call it the Great Resignation. Last summer, a lot of people decided to quit their jobs. So Microsoft has, and I can forward the link to it. It's on hybridization. They use the title. And the fact is that, for something like this, that we do, every once in a while to come to do the Zoom, it may be okay, it may be enjoyable. But to your point, we're overdoing it. At work, we may be overdoing it. And with it comes some detriment. We notice that with school. Kids are not learning. They can't. It's not the same thing as being in a classroom. So for older humans, same thing, one meeting after another meeting back to back, that leads to burnout. So like with everything, finding that balance between, hey, this is very convenient, and hey, we're actually driving people away because it's too much. It's too much of a good thing, literally, in my opinion.
Yeah, I work with a group now that sort of takes pride in their lack of skills in technology.
Okay.
And they're not in the private sector, they're in government. I'm sad for that, but I'm not the person that can change anything there. I have stuck my flag in the ground and nobody's interested in it. So there's going to be that camp. I don't know how to help them. They don't want to help.
John, again, going back to Jason and your comment, it's not a cure-all. It's not a panacea. It's not something. Hey, you know, here's the solution to all our problems. It's a technology that, as Sheila and some of you have already said, used to be daunting and a little bit frightening. A chunk of us have mastered it. People like me are thinking, hey, you know, it'll be cool to post this as a promotion. Who's going to watch 40 minutes of us meeting? I don't know. But to me, the fact that the content was produced and put up counts for something. At least it's going to count when I have to check off my level 4 and 5 that I did it. You know, I'm keeping the tape. The fact is that, you know, you're always going to have opinions and points of view. I'm going to play prognosticator now and look at the future. Clubs may eventually segment also. Hey, you know, we're not virtual. We're traditional, whatever you want to call it. We meet. There's the location. Don't worry about the technology. Don't bring the technology. And then some other clubs, as Sheila pointed out, may continue to open up the door because it is a boost to membership to have people attend online. And I think that the use case, if you will, applies to most everything out there. Some organizations are going to be able to keep it as an add-on. I have help with other places where I volunteer. And guess what? The Zoom Master skills came in handy. Where did I learn them? Here with you guys. And some other groups are just going to continue being technology heavy and figure out how to use it for their audiences. I think the question there is, like Michael said, who is the audience? Where is this message? Who is the intended recipient of this message? Does that make sense, John?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't want to see the red. I think I saw yellow a while back. So what I'm going to do is wind this down. Thank everybody for your questions again. I felt by the extent and the enthusiasm displayed in your elaborations, it's obviously a topic that is worth discussing. To the leaders of the club, something I picked up. I wanted to say that before John came in. Yes, there is a club in Germany. Actually, the division director just bragged about it as part of the President's Distinguished. The division made President's Distinguished, and she highlighted the fact that it's the first club in the world that does meetings in German and Mandarin. Like, I think I said it to you guys, I understand half of it, but it's a fun half. It's an interesting half because here we see people like me trying to wrestle with a second language. And that's why we get together. And that's something that I think in many clubs that I've attended, that's a value added that we provide as members of Toastmasters is for those of us who are attempting to master a language, to provide them with a safe environment to gather and practice. So I wanted to close with that. Let's continue the conversation. I'm going to put up the closing slide and I will stop the recording after that. Here's my My closing slide, making all the noise in the world. It's going up, going up. So as I close this, again, thanks for watching. For anybody who came and watched this, this is part of the course materials for my master's in instructional design technology. I appreciate everyone's time today. And I'm going to stop the recording and then the share. Stop.